In this video, I'm going to go over some basics in body language and talk about how you can use those basics to incorporate into whatever you draw or paint or create, and use some human examples as well as inanimate objects and stuff like that. There is a little handout that is attached to the bottom. Feel free to print it out, use it to draw on top of, or trace over, or just look at. And yeah, thanks. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about body language and how you can apply it to more than just humans, because we perceive the world through ways that we understand ourselves. So, we're going to start with kind of obvious, like a happy or healthy or proud figure. So, I have, like I usually do, my drawing underneath, and that's my base, and then we're going to be talking about it, but I'll draw in red pen at first, so we can talk about posture and form. So, with happy or proud or, overall pleasant characters, we're going to have a slight arch, either like an upright spine or even like a slight arch back. It's just kind of a natural thing of chest puffed out kind of thing. The shoulders are pushed out and back. It's just what the body does. And so this line kind of represents the path of the spine, and then from there I locate my rib cage, and then the hips would be right about here, shoulder, arm. And so when you're feeling good, or you're feeling like open, the limbs kind of go outward. So not necessarily like reaching out. You can, that would be an expression of like super happy, but the shoulders are out and the legs are probably at least like a shoulder width apart from each other. The neck often echoes the spine, and just kind of a slight tilt back. And I'm going to definitely talk about the facial muscles that express body language and express messages. But for now, just a tiny little smile will do. I'm going to stutter. I'm not even going to edit out stuttering because it's just going to keep happening. Alright, so next, like I said, it doesn't have to be just a person. We're going to apply the same things to a little sproutling. So its spine, obviously, it doesn't have a spine, so its main stem is going to stand in, just because it's the closest thing. It's the closest thing that we can relate to as being a spine. So there's a word, anthropomorphizing, and it means to be giving human attributes to something that isn't human, an inanimate object. And although plants are obviously alive, they do not have features, they do not have organs like we do, or like so we just assign what would be the human characteristics of whatever we need to animate or illustrate. So even though I will go into it more, I'll just say that the cheek muscles, when you smile, it's kind of easy. You can kind of really just like use yourself as reference, but when you smile, what happens with your body is your cheek muscles push up, and that pushes the eyelids in a certain shape. So it's easy to read an instant emotion with just something as simple as like an arc to signify that the cheek is being pushed up. So spine curved, leaves or limbs are outward, and you got a smile, and this one's got a smile and it's curving up. Next we'll go a little cat. So I'm gonna do this in basic shapes because this one's a little bit more complex than the plant. So we'll go for kind of cube head, and the spine curves up, and although you can't see it, it's kind of helpful and pretty important to mark where the spine would be, because it helps you plant where your limbs will be. So this is my spine, if I could see it, if it was an x-ray. And so from there, I can base this. We have the rib cage, and if this is the spine and it runs down the middle, just put an oval. And the pelvis and the butt here. And then from there I can place, so here's my butt zone. And I figure the side of each is where I'll place the imaginary femur if I could see it. So basically the like haunch part of the leg. Just do another oval. And then a little pad for the foot, a little pad for the foot. I'll draw over this in pencil too because I know it's gonna get a little bit messy with the red. Connect it. The tail is out and fluffy and stuff because it's happy. Ears are perked up. Eyes are being pushed up because the cheeks are smiling. And it has a dead mouse. Give it a neck. And then from here, shoulders on the side. Knees, paw. Shoulder, knee, paw. And I will very quickly just kind of go over this so you can see what it would eventually turn into. Kind of differentiate the layers of red that I've created. So hopefully that's a little bit more clear now. And we're gonna do some demons. So you don't normally think of a happy-go-lucky, super proud demon, but I thought maybe, you know, he just won someone's soul. So we have, again, start with the spine. It's curving out. With demons, you always exaggerate features. It doesn't have to be exaggerating every feature, but you definitely need a decent amount of exaggeration and awkward motion, which we will go into. I think that's going to be the second body language video because this one's going to cover basics. So I have the spine arch back, which gives me the layout of where the ribs would be, leading to the stomach. And for this, I'm going to give him one of those stomach faces. It doesn't look like anything, it's too tiny, but that's okay. Arch back, limbs outward, and normally I would have, if it did have a neck, I would tilt it back, but for this, I'm gonna give it pretty much no neck. Cheeks being pushed up, and I'll just give it a gross, weird face. Okay, and lastly, just to show you how basic all of this can be, we're gonna do a hot dog. So, just got a bun, a tube. This is the crust part of the hot dog bun. And then the cheek is being pushed up, so that's the eye. And it's being pushed up by this stupid little smile. And if you want, you can give it little emotion marks like, holy crap. So, what we kind of talked about is, oh crap. So, let's go over the characteristics of the general pleasant happiness. And for this, I'm going to stack the drawing over the postures that we went over, just so it can be clearer. And so we talked about the spine being arched back or at least pushed forward. We talked about the neck being tilted back and shoulders out. We talked about cheeks being pushed up. We will go into face later. Talked about general openness. And on to the next one. So next we're going to talk about sad or upset or withdrawn. So unlike the happy one that we just talked about, this we're going to have a more shrunken body posture to it. So shoulders in, the spine kind of curved in from the top. And just from there, I have basically where my shoulders will be and where the chest is. And the head I'll have hanging low. Feet are probably going to be close together. If you want to exaggerate it, you can have the knees kind of pushing in together, or maybe the toes kind of pushing in together, like so. And I'll just have the arms hanging. I'll go over that just because it's a little bit vague. So we have the head here. This would be the hair. The nose would be down here. Follow this, elbow, arm, slightly bent inward for the leg. Next, we'll do the flower. So again, we're associating the spine with the stem, so we have that curving down. And when you draw pretty much anything, like anything that has a neck, it's important to kind of imagine if this was just going to continue, that's the path of the spine and the spinal cord. So if you would do it the same with the flowers, this is where the center of the flower meets. And I know that it's like, just a dumpy little flower, but if you say you draw this stem and then you draw the head like, and you're like, why does that not look right? It's because you need to treat it as if you treat like drawing it from nature, and nature would have the head wrap around the center of the base. You can emphasize sadness or maybe like hunger or thirst or whatever being less than great with kind of curving inward. Just like the limbs, we have petals curving in. I'm going to have these leaves drooping down. The most prominent way to show that someone's sad is to have a suggestion that the eyebrows are being pushed upwards towards the middle of the forehead. Saggy little leaves, sad little rose or tulip blossom down here. Next is the Kaya. So we have our little box shape. The eyebrows pointing up towards the center of the forehead. And already it looks sad, but we have the ears pushed back closer to the body. We have the head hanging low, which means the spine is going to be curving up behind it. And we follow that to build the rest of the cat's body. So the neck ends here, which means the rib cage is about here, which means the shoulders here, which means the knees here. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. And then the butt would be about there. And I'm gonna have this back leg kind of tucked behind the tail. And then the other front leg in the back. And then some whiskers. And I guess I didn't know that killed the mouse somehow, but it did. Next we'll do this little Howling Demon. I'll do a weird, sad mouth. Kind of looks happy. We'll stop it there. There we go. And eyebrows pushing up. The shoulders are hunched below, so that's one shoulder, two shoulders. I'll draw this one in pencil as well. So we have him howling up. This is the head. Let's see, exaggerated eyebrow pointing up. Sad face. This is the chest bowing in. Shoulder, shoulder, which leads to the bicep area and the arms curving in. Shoulder leads to bicep, leads to arm curling in. And we're just gonna do his legs kind of tucked between, or tucked beneath him. Sorry, I'm gonna go really basic because I kind of made that one a little bit busier than it needed to be. Oh, woo. And lastly, sad little hot dog with its bun. Eyebrows pushed up towards the middle of the forehead. And someone squashed the ketchup. So, when it came to the sad or withdrawn, we have spine curled in, or, you know, hunched. Limbs withdrawn. Sagging. And eyebrows up towards the middle of the forehead. I'll just draw a quick pair. We'll do one more and then we'll go into facial expressions. Okay, so lastly we're gonna go with aggression or anger or upset. So, for our person, we will often have, again, like the sad, we will have the spine curve forward, but this time the rest of the posture is going to be more out. So we have the spine curving forward, which gives me my rib cage, gives me where my shoulders will be. I'm going to say that this leg is in front. And eyebrows point downwards towards the middle. It's pretty hard to make a tulip look angry, but we have the spine curving over like this. And again, we're following this as if it was a center, so it goes based on that center. And it's not quite hanging its head, but it is holding it lowered, with eyebrows also pushed low towards the middle of the forehead, limbs outward, and I'd be pissed too if there was this fucking asshole caterpillar eating me. So we got an angry tulip. You can also sharpen features if you want to make it look a little bit extra mean. Maybe give it thorns, but depends if you need it to be consistent with the other pictures. Next is a cat, and probably my favorite of all of them. So again, we just have that boxy head. And this is a good example. We see this a little bit in humans, but we'll talk about it with the facials and facial features in a second. But snarling. So snarling is the lip curling up, and that pushes the cheek muscles up, which pushes the eyes up. And with the cheeks being pushed up and the eyebrows being pushed down, we get this nice, sharp, angry eye. So ears pushed back. Again, head lowered, not hanging, but lowered. So that gives me my spine. And spine is arched like they do. And again, curve forward. Tail straight up. You can do whatever you want with the tail. Ain't important to me. But from there, if this is the neck, then we have the rib cage here. Shoulder, knee, paw, outward. Although you can't see it, shoulder, knee, paw. And then based on that, if the butt's here, then you got the thigh, the knee goes back a little bit, and then it's got the longer feet. And then back here, would be back leg, and the foot. Next, we've got a demon. We've got this spine arched forward, which gives us where our shoulders will be. The spine arched forward tells us where the ribs are. Limbs are outward. Head is hung low or lifted low. If you want to look extra angry, and if you have shoulders, have the shoulders arching out. And he dropped his ice cream. And lastly, this fucking really angry hot dog. So he's arching forward. His bun is arching forward. Or her bun. Or their bun. Eyebrows pointing to the middle. You can do an extra furrow if you want. This little furrow makes it look like you're pressing so hard that the skin is kind of wrinkling. And same thing, you can do like little marks underneath the frown, because that would exaggerate the muscles that you push around when you frown. So this is the bun. Alright, so for this one, we had the spine curling in, limbs pushed outward, eyebrows down to the middle. Okay, and next we're going to talk about facial muscles and how they affect communication. So we're going to talk about faces and the muscles that create expressions and how delicate the movements can be that can shape a character's face and really become a powerful tool for pretty much everything you draw. So to show that, you know, you can apply it to different things, I'm choosing something as basic as a hot dog and more complex, like a go-to human figure. So let's start with happiness. So when you smile, your cheeks push up. And your cheeks push up because your mouth pushes it. So with something like this, because its eyes are right near its mouth, its cheeks are going to be right near its mouth too. So when you see, you know, a cute thing drawn with this kind of mouth, it's because its cheeks are most of its face. So right there, mouth moves, the cheeks, and the cheeks kind of push underneath. So while this isn't natural, obviously, because the cheeks would be like, and the eyes would be up here, we're gonna simulate that cheeks are pushing up the eyes. So it's very Adventure Timey. I'm going to make it a little bit less exaggerated. So yeah, this is the formula for making anything cute, by the way, is eyes far apart, smile in the middle. Eyebrows, if you want them, would be lifted up, and they might be a little bit angled up. The difference being you want the eyebrow shape to arc, because if you lift it just straight up, it'll look sad or worried. So it helps to lift them up and arc. Again, cheeks. If you want to add, you can add some blush. You can add, I'm gonna go back to the weird cheeks over here. And so you might see a little bit of muscles raising the forehead too, but we're not gonna worry too much about the physiology of a hot dog right now. So right now we'll just go back to the base. Hot dog at rest. We'll go to the human now. So we're gonna replicate the same things. Here we have the corners of the mouth pushing up. I'm exaggerating, but I don't care. So the mouth corners pushing up, we'll push the cheeks up. Now that I've done that, I will do it more subtle. So pushes the corners up. Depending on the age of your subject, you might have laugh lines, but only if they're of significant age, because regardless, like, everyone has those lines, but you have to decide what's worth defining with black, especially when you're only drawing with one tone. So if there's a very light line and you draw it in black, that's going to look like a very heavy line. So use those lines where they apply and only where they apply, based on how much tone you're keeping in your drawing. So we have this being pushed. Maybe she has a couple dimples. We're gonna push this cheek up, which pushes the lid up. And I'm not gonna worry too much about how realistic she looks, because the point is, we do those things, we lift the corners, we lift the cheek, we lift the brows. And she's gonna look great. All right, bring her back to base. Cool. Next, we're gonna go with sad or upset or just not happy. So, like we talked about, the biggest thing that's going to help you draw something that looks sad is going to be the eyebrows. It just doesn't, it's just the easiest way, because your cheeks might push up a little bit, and you can signify that with a little line underneath, maybe a quick little teardrop. If you want to exaggerate the brows, maybe, again, I tried brows on the last hot dog and it looks a little bit insane, but the eyebrows are going to be what mainly gives you the concern, the sadness, whatever. And then find even sometimes a sad smile, or like a half frown is enough to make someone really sympathetic for a hot dog that we just gave birth to. All right. For a person, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna have the mouth curved down, and that will be more obvious on a human than a hot dog we invented. So we're gonna have a bit of a dimple, but underneath, and that'll kind of show the muscles that frowning uses. Again, the same laugh lines, like it's more likely that these subtle lines will show up when you're frowning because you kind of can't help it and it's unpleasant. Also, an unpleasant smell, you can use those lines too, but I'm going to make them a little bit more subtle for now. And I'm going to focus on the eye shape because the cheeks, they might move a little bit again, but focus on this. I'm going to have the eyebrows maybe stay where they would as like a little bit with base, like the like regular face, but the very edge needs to be pointing up. So you can have it looking down and up if you want to be confused or something like that. But if the centermost part of the brow is pointing up, it helps to look sad or concerned or, you know. And with that, with this pulling up, it's subtle, but maybe look in the mirror and lift your brows and see what happens to your lids. If that cheek is pushing up, this will be pushed up, the lower lid will push up. And sometimes you can exaggerate by taking the upper lid and mimicking the shape of the brow. So right now, this is her upper lid and her lashes, but I'm using it to curve and mimic the shape of the brow, and it just goes along with it. So I'll do the same thing over here. The cheek rising makes this flat. A furrow in the brow. Tears. Back to base. Okay, last we'll do angry. So, anger. Again, let's focus on the brows. So, when we had these pointing up, you'll notice I had space between because the brow muscles pull up and away. And when you're angry, they push down and almost over your eye. So you can have a subtle angry look. But if I'm going to draw an angry cartoon hot dog, what I'll do is intensify it by having the eyebrow pointing down and having it pushed so far down that it is actually covering the eye. And that just exaggerates that. Furrowed hot dog brow. And you might have the cheeks push up, but again, like we mimicked the lash line, the eyelid, we're going to mimic the cheek too. Because if it had a nose, the nose would be pushing the cheeks up this way. And then put a little bit of furrow underneath. It's really mad. It looks constipated, but if you want to draw a constipated hot dog, now you know how. With the human, we're going to exaggerate, but do the same thing. Start with the brows. And furrow. The nose might be lifted up a little bit, maybe in a snarl. The lip curls up a bit in a snarl, which also lifts the nose. Again, you don't have to do this, but this is talking about facial muscles and stuff, so it's good to know these subtle little tricks. So a curled lip will curl this, will curl this, will curl this, which will lead to the cheek, mimicking the brow shape. So this one's a little more messy, but I hope that made sense. This one will just have kind of half frowning. Clean this up a little bit so it's a little more clear. Cool.